Good morning, good evening, and keep it tight. Welcome back to Liquidmatrix Security Digest Hacker Radio Podcast, episode 0x79. We are back. The original gangsters ride again. With me this week are myself, Dave Lewis, Matt Johansson, and James Arlen on the Wheels of Steel. I should point out that this show does not represent the thoughts, intentions, or plans for strategies of world domination for our employers, ex-girlfriends, wives, belly button lint, or the militant wing of the Girl Guides. It is solely our personal opinions. We make no guarantees to the accuracy, validity, or sobriety, relevance, or importance of anything we say or do here. My portion of this podcast has been brought to you by me tripping over my own tongue. Hey guys, it's good to be back. 3 in a row. Three Pete.
You know that you've said that line over 130 times over the last 12 years, and you still can't get that speech out.
It's because I
You
keep
need a
changing it.
teleprompter?
I keep changing it. I have the script right in front of me. It's because every time I do this, I change it ever so slightly. And of course, it never, ever.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to go back to like episode 2 or 3, and I'll just take that clip and just play it.
I'm just going to go sit in my game closet.
Extremely happy to hear it for the first time again last week. I was like, oh, I forgot about that. So I'm glad to hear it, even if you stumble.
It's really nice to be back, I got to admit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really funny how many people called us out saying, oh, 2 in a row. Yeah, we're not going to see a third one. It's like, surprise.
Turns out that now that we're all grown-ups and you put an entry into our calendars, we show up for it because our lives are showing up to meetings on time. That's my entire damn job.
It was crazy because when we were doing them in the evenings, as much fun as that was, it just wasn't sustainable because the missus and the kids are like, we're going in these directions. And it's like, okay, this is not going to scale.
Yup.
That's why I said, I was like, hey, can we eat into corporate time instead of people time on weekends or anything like that? So, oh, yeah, no, I mean, we're coming to you live from Saturday.
Lunch. Yes, lunch.
I literally did scarf a sandwich as we were writing the show notes. So this is technically my lunch.
Frankly. Well, we've got news. We got breaches. I've got a fabulous DERP. I want to introduce a new section called Jamie Yells at Clouds because I got really pissed off at something today and I need to vent. Oh, God, I need to vent. Mm-hmm. And then some brieflies and we'll be done. And we'll still fit it inside 45 minutes. Promise.
We need to Photoshop you over that Simpsons meme of old man yells at cloud.
That may or may not already exist as a Slack emoji at work. So, yeah, there's that. All right, news. It starts with you, Matt.
It always starts with me. Okay. Well, hey, my first one for the week is a big one. This is going to be, I've been writing this for my newsletter already this week, so it was super easy for me to pick this up. Apple had a big event this week.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so unlike them.
Announced a lot of things, including iOS 18. And they finally have said the word AI in public. They've been avoiding saying the AI word. And of course, they come out now and say, well, we've been doing AI forever. If your watch detects if you fall and that, that's all machine learning, right? And what they really mean is that they're getting into generative AI now, right? And so they announced a few things, one of which was like a whole lot of AI stuff that's going to be baked into iOS 18 and a lot of their other products and offerings, including Siri is going to like catch up to like actually maybe try to be useful again. Instead of like right now, I'm just annoyed when Siri accidentally like fires on my phone. I'm like, I didn't try to do that. Go away. I've never used it to do anything except for set a kitchen timer successfully. So they have baked all new AI magic into Siri. But guess what is really hard to do for AI? Train and use models on little tiny pieces of hardware like your phone. So in order to like do, the big AI stuff, there's going to be some little stuff on your phone. But to do like the big AI stuff, they're going to have to do something very un-Apple of them. And they're going to have to ship stuff off of your phone to their cloud. Well, that's hard for a company that literally has a billboard that just says the word privacy and lean super hard into the fact that they are, the more privacy forward of these big vendors that they, compete with in a lot of these device land, right? I mean, is it really that hard when your competition is an advertising company uh, to be more privacy forward? Okay, that all being said, they came out with this thing called private cloud compute. And I am actually not yelling at this cloud, Jamie. I don't know about you or if you read this announcement fully, but as a cloud security nerd, I am hyper impressed with this announcement. I am not a full-on Apple fanboy. I do partake in the Apple ecosystem, but I wouldn't say that I'm like everything they do is gold and I'm first in line or anything like that. That's not me. But I do enjoy their products. That being said, shilling aside, fanboy aside, very impressed with this announcement. They are basically taking one of the world's hardest problems. There's a good thread by Matthew Green that he, cryptography expert, that tore into this topic, and he sets it up and says, hey, this is one of the world's hardest problems in computer science, is like private computing, shared computing, cloud computing. Apple basically threw every trick they have at this one. Anything that works on your iPhone to make it like a secure piece of hardware, like your secure boot, secure enclave, basically the separate chip with encryption keys, all this kind of stuff, they've now done in a cloud computing resource, right? They've also thrown some new tricks at it. Stateless computation, enforceable guarantees, no privileged runtime access. I'm going to pause on this one really quick. This means, and they've made a big point to say, not even Apple like admins are going to be able to peek into this data if they needed to. Put a better way, if a 3-letter agency comes with a piece of paper that says, hey, we need this person's data, Apple cannot give it to them because of things like this, right? They threw a lot of really big features at this. There are, of course, some sticking points. There are, of course, some holes. There's going to be some sharp edges. We're going to find vulnerabilities in this, I'm sure, right? It's just launched. It's the first time. So not to say like, oh, this is unhackable and like everything is gold, but super impressed. Want to hear what you guys think. The one other caveat before I get off my soapbox on this. This is a slippery slope, right? And this is an argument I've seen a lot of other people say is if they figured out how to do this good enough, quote unquote, that the consumers are okay with it, what else do they start shipping off your device and to the cloud? Can they start making less powerful hardware that's very hard to jam as much power as they do into these little devices? Can they start to say, oh, well, we don't need to spend as much R&D on making this thing more powerful if we can just ship it back home to the farm? Yeah, so kind of slippery slope there. Interested in what you guys think.
The long conversation about it happened in work Slack. And one of the things that I think may end up happening is that we may see a return of the old Airport Extreme home server concept. So if you think of the way that they've built this, Tim Cook was very clear. I almost said Tim Apple. Tim Cook was very clear that this was running on M-series processors in the data center. And think of another variation on this where, kind of like when you point your new phone at your old phone and it looks at the magical dancing lights, that there's a link up between something the size of a Mac Mini in your house and your devices and your Apple family thing. And then I can't remember what the feature is called, but the super advanced protection feature that's in Apple where it like hyper encrypts things and builds it all together so that, yes, you're a little lower on the redundancy front, because what happens when the device in your house fails, but it's got iCloud backup. You just replace it with another one. Apple Care swap out in the Apple store is pretty darn fast. The big sort of chunky weirdness in there that you didn't mention, Matt, but is worth mentioning is that they will be able to do a lot more local on the A17 Pro, which is in the iPhone 15 Pro, and the M series chips. So modern iPads, only the most modern phone, but otherwise it's going to the cloud. So if you've got Mac Intel stuff, or if you have iPad pre M series, it's going to the cloud. And it's got features. Dave?
I have one other caveat. I forgot. So the other elephant in the room here is that they also announced their partnership with OpenAI and ChatGPT.
It's my story.
Oh, what? Is it? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you're talking about the pay stuff. Well, hold on. So just caveat, there's on-device stuff, like you said, obviously all good, right? It's on your device. No privacy implications there of like just cool AI magic and whatever. Then there's the stuff that ships to private cloud compute. To be seen if there's going to be concerns there, but very impressed with how they launched, especially compared to their counterparts, right? Like, I mean, look at the Microsoft recall mess. Like compared to that, this is very privacy forward. Bucket number 3, their OpenAI partnership with, this is a good transition into your story, Jamie. But anything that touches ChatGPT is not part of this private cloud compute and not part of the stuff that's on device. That is actually going to OpenAI, but it will say, "Hey, are you sure you want to send that request?" Like if you talk to Siri and say, "Hey, blah 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 blah," and it'll say, "We're going to send this to ChatGPT. Is that cool?" And you have to say yes, right? So there is like a confirmation that there's a difference between the device, Apple Cloud, or hey, we're going to go send this to a third party. I'm good with that. I'm good with that choice. I use ChatGPT all day. I'll be able to know, what do I send over there? What don't I? So
This feels oddly reminiscent of people accepting EULAs, because I just can see people, yeah, sure, I'll send it. Yeah, sure, I'll send it. Yeah, sure, I'll send it. There is that little bit of concern I have.
But
Yep.
that feature's not like that intent set is not the one that you are paying attention to. That's an intent set that some random person who firmly believes that this little block is entirely and only magic. That's where that world comes from. But there's a couple of threads that fall out of that. The first integrated large scale, GPT type interface is with OpenAI's ChatGPT, but Mr. Cook was very clear that others will follow. The one piece in there that's sort of super missing, and because I'm going to yell about it later, the enterprise guy comes in and says, well, wait a minute, can I put my ChatGPT API key on that so that it goes into my ChatGPT instance? Or, I use Gemini. I would like it to go into my Gemini instance for work so that I can continue to treat it the way that I treat that unclaved LLM, where my knowledge isn't used to train anything outside of it.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about Siri, right? So like in an enterprise context, are you really going to stop what you're doing and like start speaking source code into Siri? No, you know what I mean? Like there's
You're going to have Siri listen to a meeting and then summarize it for you.
okay.
Now they
I
said
don't see that. I don't see that use case. I'd use a different product for that if I was doing that. But yeah, that's fair.
Well, it's one of the announced features that in the phone app, you can hit record, transcribe, and summarize, and it will notify both parties that the call is being recorded and transcribed. Like, it is all built in.
Yeah.
And a great example of that is where this came from, and I think there's a lot to do with it. I just dropped into our chat, is a company called Clef Notes, which is really amazing because I can sit there and I can rattle off for 10 minutes and it will actually transcribe everything and put it in a format that is germane to the conversation. It's really, really amazing. So I can see this technology is very much included in Apple's offering. It really, really amazing. And as a brief aside, there's one thing that if you haven't had a chance to check it out, have a look at Private LLM. It only works on the newer Macs, but it is a lot of fun, and everything runs locally.
Olama on this stuff too. Yeah, I'm a power user of a lot of this stuff, and I'm bullish on this whole feature set. I get a lot of ideas of content and stuff that I'm working on while I'm on a walk. I would love to not have to figure out how to unlock my phone and whatever. If I could just speak some of this stuff into existence and it shows up in a note for me, and it's coherent and not just like my ramblings while I'm out of breath, like on a ruck or something, then great. You know what I mean? And I think you just have to be aware of your threat model, what privacy you're concerned about and what you're not. I don't really care who's stealing my random thoughts while I'm on a walk, right? But I do care if this is used to summarize a call between me and my doctor, right? And what happens at that point? Can my insurance company buy that information and raise my premium?
And we have
saying clear that they're not going to let happen, right?
And we have seen examples of this. For example, one company that remained nameless had put all of their meeting notes into ChatGPT and distilled it, not realizing that other entities could access that same data, and that was serious egg on their faces. And no sense naming them because we don't need to kick a horse when it's down.
Well, but that's actually one of the things that I use it for quite a bit. I've got a global team, which means anytime we've got a team meeting, it gets recorded, and we use Google at work. And so I hit the transcribe button when I hit the record button, and I take the transcribed output, dump it into Gemini. Gemini gives me back meeting notes. Plop the meeting notes into a storage document, and whoop, I win. But I also know that it's in my Gemini confines. It doesn't go outside of my corporate version of that. So I can feed information into my corporate LLM, and I'm fine with that. That works. I think, though, the big issue with all this one is that unlike with the way that Apple and Google have a relationship around default search engine and how Google pays Apple an ungodly amount of money every year to remain the default search engine, Apple's not going to be paying OpenAI anything to use ChatGPT. And it's apparently ChatGPT 4.0. So no money flying back and forth. And you know how I feel when that happens, right? If I'm not paying for the product, then I am the product.
Ding, ding, ding.
And so I'm really looking for that login with my ChatGPT authentication credentials or log in with my other provider credentials and make sure there's lots of providers available, which they're likely going to have to do because European Union anyways. But make it so that I can do all of these things in a relatively easy and simple way, and I'll be okay with it. But as long as it's free, I know it's me that they're actually after, and I don't really like that. That news was not part of the virtual stage WWDC stuff.
And I have to be clear that with all of this stuff, I'm not a naysayer. I'm just always, a little bit of caution would be lovely. But the technology itself, when I look back at, dealing with Sun Netras and SGI octanes and things like that, I'm like, I'm happy to be here.
When I was a boy,
well, back in the day,
we had to pay for Unix.
Used to walk uphill to school both ways and up. Yeah, I'm gonna just have a nap now.
That's 8-year-old and onward. It's your story turn, Dave.
My story. Well, I feel like a special snowflake. Snowflake has been looking into the issue that we talked about. I had dad jokes all day long, man. You kidding me? So Snowflake has been looking into the recurring data breaches with various customers and trying to hunt this down. And they are in the process of actually closing their own investigation. That apparently this campaign caused damage to about 165 different customers, and it was a very targeted campaign. And apparently they're now wrapping it up because they have not seen anybody else get hit in the last last week, I believe it is. It's curious that I'm still wondering what is at the root of this. I mean, there probably is no one root cause; it's probably multiple. But it'll be really interesting to see if they come forward in an effort of transparency and share what actually did happen. And it's not to beat them up, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just so we can learn collectively, because this is one of the things that security across the board isn't very good about. We don't share the lessons learned effectively. And I think this is actually a masterclass in what happened, because fundamentally none of us really know what transpired yet. And I really do hope that they come clean and share that so that we can all, better secure our own environments, because it might be something as simple as just stolen credentials, or it could be something more nefarious. We don't know yet. And hopefully we will know at some point. What do you guys feel about this particular thing? And anytime you have something unified like this, there is that potential. So, where do we go from here? What is the upside?
Do you have opinions?
I have lots of opinions. I have lots of opinions on this one. I think it's super hard that they've at least publicly kind of thrown their heads up and said, well, no MFA, not our problem. Which is, I don't know. In my opinion, you've got some shared responsibility means shared responsibility. right? Like, and to go, hey, shit at the fan, and we are not responsible is not shared responsibility, right? I've been in these conversations a few times now with like credential stuffing type attacks, where people say, well, hey, that's not a breach, that's credential stuffing. Those are people using old creds. And I think there's a middle ground there. I completely understand that point. But I also think that there are lots of things that companies can do to like spot anomalies like this, right? Where, hey, if 500 of our customers just had how many petabytes of data all of a sudden go out the door to places that didn't, and like that set off 0 alarm bells. And even I saw some threads talking about this, and I don't know if this is true, so this is my caveat, so lawyers don't come after me, because apparently they're out for blood. But is uh they're also potentially charging for that use. That's like a lot of compute to like exfil this data. So if all of a sudden they're going to recognize the revenue for the spike in traffic. So I've heard some mumblings that some customers actually are like pissed because they not only got hacked, but they got charged extra for it, for bandwidth usage.
And economic denial of service.
So it's like, if they're going to realize that revenue and call that revenue because of a breach, that's obviously there's some sticky parts there too. But yeah, there's a lot you could do here if you're the vendor to like, hey, were you checking impossible geo stuff? Were you like checking for if there was a data breach? Were you bringing in that data breach info? Like, do you subscribe to Have I Been Pwned? And are you running those creds through your own users and then force resetting passwords? If you're not, you can't really say, well, we couldn't do anything about this. If you're doing all of those things and people still got popped because of some crazy malware campaign, or nation states were on all of our freaking Wi-Fi routers or whatever, that's a different story, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not doing some normal account takeover hygiene stuff, and I honestly don't know enough about what their account takeover story is, but I'm a little frustrated on the like throw the hands up and be like, well, 400 of our biggest enterprise customers did this wrong, and that's on them.
And this is one of the problems that I have with a breach of this size and scope, where they don't come forward with the information. And granted, they're still going through and trying to figure out what exactly did transpire. I understand that, because usually the people that are first out of the gate, I have no idea. And that's why I'm throwing my hands up in the air and saying, I've got no idea. But I would absolutely love to see a postmortem on this to understand what did happen, because I think that this can help everyone across the board.
So this is one of those ones that hits rather near and dear. My day job is running security at a database as a service provider. The first thing that I want to say that I have definitely not heard enough of is, if any of the team working at Snowflake happens to listen to this podcast, hats off to you. I know that you're working your ass off. I know that you're not sleeping. I know that you're getting ripped over the coals by assholes like us. And I know that you didn't do nothing. You might not have been able to do everything that you could. That might have been sitting behind a budgeting issue or a time and priority issue. I just want to make sure that it's loud and frickin' clear. The blue team always gets their ass kicked on these things.
Always.
You need to respect the blue team. From a more practical perspective, you're absolutely right, Matt. Shared responsibility model. And one of the things that is an actual conflict, for me anyways, is where does it slip from shared responsibility model to like toxic paternalism? And I think there's an open question there that I don't think is being particularly well discussed. I don't know where that line is myself. And that's something that actually we're trying to work through at the office right now, is where do we draw that line on things like mandatory MFA, or we have we use How I've Been Pwned, but we don't necessarily rerun it as often as we could or should. We are a participant in GitHub Secret Scanner, but that's just GitHub. And unless you have a GitHub Enterprise license that doesn't check your private repos, it only checks your public repos. Like, there's a lot in there, and it's non-trivial, and it's easy to point. And I mean, let's face it, we all point and giggle because we all know how damn hard this is to get it right.
Yeah.
But trying to put together that full list of I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this, and then getting customers to agree to it.
100%. And I agree. I completely agree. It's super easy for like a bunch of security wonks to come on and be like, you weren't enforcing MFA. It's like, who the heck enforces MFA, right? In a lot of places. And you make that user trade-off, right? A lot of places where that account is very optional. You know what I mean? It's not like your bank or whatever. It's like they could go somewhere else. They're not going to mandate MFA because some people are going to be like, I don't want to do this. I'm out. Right. And you're going to lose users. So I completely understand not being the security guy on the sideline saying, well, you could have just done this. Right. But I will say response, like how you respond publicly and PR and lawyers and all that kind of stuff is super, super important in perception in this place. And to come out and be like, this is what we did, this is what we didn't do, this is whatever. The one good thing I'll give them here is they came out and they said, hey, we went and got Mandiant and CrowdStrike, and they came in and they did review. We're throwing money at this. We're responding. Kudos, huge kudos. Yeah. Those were 2 big fat checks they probably wrote, right? But yeah,
or their insurance company wrote.
Yeah,
because remember, a lot of that stuff happens at the behest of your insurance company. You don't actually get a say in those things. If you go down the angle of I'm going to invoke my cyber insurance policy, you lose control over what happens next.
Yeah.
And the other point I wanted to hang on, even though we're getting real long here, is the point that you made about user application behavior. And from the inside of a DBS, that's really, really hard to determine.
No, it's a hard problem. You're right.
What's not normal, right? Yeah. Like if somebody moves an entire copy of their Postgres database off once a week, maybe sometimes they move it twice in a week. Is that abnormal behavior or not? I don't know. I can't tell.
Ask me about the time that I talked to somebody who came into a place and said, "Hey, what are we backing up every week to Hong Kong?" And they're like, "We don't have anything in Hong Kong." That's a good story.
I had a similar conversation. It was but with Shenzhen, so that's another story for down by the riverbank.
Yeah. No, completely agree, Jamie. This is super hard. I don't mean to be too hard. I'm not being hard on the blue team. I hope everyone realizes that. The shared responsibility model is real, and it's been hard to feel that in a lot of the public comms right now that we are feeling the shared responsibility versus the nope, you're responsible. So
I do have one question as we close this one off: does this rise to the level of a black swan event? Because is significant impact. You have people doing hindsight going, you should have, woulda, coulda. The reason I bring it up now is because we haven't gotten to that point yet where we know everything.
I think that this is just an example of one of those things that you hope doesn't occur and you plan for it to occur, and then it does, and then, oh God, it doesn't go the way you planned.
So if you're listening out there and you have the capacity, be sure to send kudos to the blue team over there, because Lord knows they've had their butts handed to them, and we've all been there, and we feel for them for sure.
Exactly. All right. Speaking of, we just talked about breaches. Why are we talking about breaches if we just talked about breaches?
I don't know.
But somebody said we're talking about breaches because firewalls are still a thing.
Oh dear!
Who uses firewalls?
What year is it?
Yeah, so for Fortinet and FortiGate, they've been getting beat up pretty heavily this year with 0 days and things like this. I don't know. I don't know if I would be touching this stuff with 10-foot poles until we just got to slow it down until we can figure out what's going on over there. Kind of motion here, but yeah, this one comes out of, I believe it was some Dutch authorities were doing a fair bit of digging on this. Yeah, Dutch Ministry of Defense went and found. We've known about these cyber espionage campaigns coming out of China for a bit now, and that the U.S.'s FBI director Wray sat in front of Congress and said, "Hey, this is big. They are hacking into edge devices on the internet and not really doing anything," which honestly is kind of scary to me. It's like, okay, sitting in wait is also kind of weird and nerve-wracking. And the story this week is the Dutch Ministry of Defense coming out and saying basically this is way bigger than we even initially thought and got nervous about. And they're finding how many? What's the big number? Big scary number? 20,000 other FortiGate systems that weren't previously identified as compromised. And these are all things that are just on the internet, right? These are your edge devices. These are the things that have to be able to stand the test of who the hell knows what people find on Shodan and throw exploits against. And now we have a nation state who is basically showing their MO, right? We're seeing it in Guam and Taiwan. We're seeing it in the US. I don't know if you guys have info on Canada or anything like that, but we're seeing it. And now it's just, this is just what we know, right? And as we see with this story, it's as you find out new stuff, it's just getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and to build on this is actually runs over my briefly. So this was actually 20,000 Fortinet VPN terminators. So, and we've seen this operation as well in other product lines, and it's not to beat up on any different product. It's just there is a concerted effort out there to try and get footholds across the internet. And it's not just China, it's Russia, Iran, and so on and so forth. So all of these nation states are looking to establish a beachhead for future use. And that, yes, absolutely, that's terrifying. But I'm really heartened that people are catching this, and that steps are being taken to mitigate it. But yeah, it's never fun to go through any sort of access like this.
Good job by the Dutch. My one of my early mentors in my career built the Dutch cert, so I yeah, hats off.
All right, you want to hear about a fun derp? All right, it's short. It's from Australian TV. You got to watch it. The commentators are laughing because somebody's talking about a data breach, and they're wearing a uniform, like military uniform, and across the lower third on the screen, it says "major data breach." Uniformed person, major data breach. That's Colonel data breach to you.
Colonel data breach. Yeah.
Or is it a general
one of those
data breach?
where the lower third just
very funny.
Didn't work. That's the entire derp. Go watch it. It'll make you laugh. You want to hear me yell at a cloud?
Let's do it.
All right. This is like my number one freaking frustration right now. In order to satisfy PEVC shareholders, everybody is trying to figure out how to sell AI something. AI anything. Doesn't matter if it's good, doesn't matter if it works, just AI, we got it. And for lots of these companies, they're primarily a product-led growth kind of company, not an enterprise customer company. And so for them, every user is a customer. And when you're talking about an enterprise account, that's not true. You usually have like a handful of customers and they have a bunch of users. And so right now, in every damn tool, I'm getting pop-ups saying, hey, turn on the AI feature set. Hey, have you tried doing this using our AI thing? Most of them have catastrophically shit pricing on these things that basically turns it into a unlimited tap. Like if I turn this on, I could have some rando schmuck who doesn't know how to use the tool run it over and over and over again, chew up all of the credits that I have available in a month, and now nobody gets AI because they used all the AI credits. Or dumb stuff like there's this tool that does a summarization of a compliance document, but every time you ask for a summarization of the same compliance document, it runs the AI summary again instead of storing the result from the first one and just giving it back to you for free. It's ridiculous, and it's in freaking everything. And get this, instead of having the conversation with me about it, because I'm the poor sap who's got the budget who has to sign the damn check, no, instead, go talk to random user in the organization and say, oh yeah, by the way, you can turn this on for only 126 euros per user per year. It's like, that's 60,000 euros. It's not in the budget. It's not going to freaking happen. Why are you talking to a random low-level employee in the organization thinking that this is going to be your pathway to sales glory as we approach the end of the quarter? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Somebody please send a recording of this to me. my vendors. I think we're at the end. Sorry, not sorry at all. I need it that badly. Next time, one of you guys can lose your mind. That's just like staring at the screen. I don't want to look at the camera. I don't want to make eye contact.
I think we've had some audio technical fun here, just trying to figure that one out. So let's just keep soldiering on. I don't know, Matt, you still with us?
Yeah.
All right. We'll fix it in post. We'll do it live.
All right.
All right. What do we got? Brieflies now.
I got it briefly. Bamboo Labs second anniversary sale. Join all of us in the melty plastic revolution. You can get a 3D printer for real cheap right now if you want one. Matt?
All right, so briefly, not going to get into this one, but really good article about the uptick in ransomware attacks on medical targets. Basically, after the Change Healthcare breach, which took down most of the US's, I don't know about international, but the US's medical billing system, they paid their $22 million ransom. Then those attackers went dark and didn't pay the affiliates. So then other people were demanding ransom too to not leak the data. So they paid, and I don't think they got what they expected for that $22 million. But people are smelling blood in the water here. And it seems like we've seen a significant increase in medical facilities, hospitals, things like that being targeted by ransomware, because now the attackers are like, well, they're willing to pay on big ransoms like that. And so they're going after them.
All right. I will jump in here. My briefly was going to be about the Fortinet thing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it up. One of the interesting questions that I've been dealing with in the past couple of weeks is who owns shadow IT risk? Now, within organizations, typically any IT-related risk falls into the CISO, the CIO, but the fiduciary responsibility for it falls to the CFO. And this is not me saying I have the answer. I'm just throwing it out there as like, who owns that risk? You know, the CISO can say, we've got policies in place. This is how it is. You're in violation, but yet shadow IT still exists. And the CFO has to worry about it in the eventual financial penalties if there's a data breach. So it's one of those things that I've been chewing on, and I just want to leave it out there so we can talk about it in the future.
Okay, fine, be that way. Upcoming appearances.
All right, I'll be speaking at the CIO Summit in Toronto on the 18th of this month, and then after that, well, things are just going to be popping up all over the place.
Cool. I'm still going to be in the forest. I need a break so bad. July cannot get here soon enough.
Nice.
I'm also going to do Matt J Euro trip. So yeah, I'm taking a bit of a break as well. Gonna fart around Europe a bit, and then I'll be at summer camp is probably the next time people will see me.
Excellent.
Cool. That gets us to the end. So, hey, Seacrest.
Again, I should look at these before I have to say them.
Why start now?
Right into them.
You guys, yeah, I feel very much like a puppet. I can like feel it go up the backside here. Seacrest says, have you made your plans for the solstice? Go long or go short. Depends on your latitude.
What? I'm feeding you grandpa level dad jokes.
Okay. Seacrest says out.
There we go.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. That's a three-peat. Go for 4 next week.
Appreciate you.
Awesome.
Catch you all later.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.